Bennett.
My care can't decide.
You're going to get a double dose.
I hope you didn't mind my
No, I haven't read it yet, but I will follow through. But I
sort of explains why.
That's an interesting economy. It resonates with you, the memory, the difference between belief and experience, right? It's,
So, well, if you experience it every day, hardly not believe
that question often works with 10th graders when none of them understand the verse, and everyone knows the second.
But I remember when I talked about the same subject with David Weiss, he said, well, you're an extreme rationalist, you should read my mind.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, two important words, and two other important words tonight. Please sing. The cantor is away. My daughter Talia, I was hoping she would be here tonight to cover and was not able to be here, so that leaves just us. So we come together. How wonderful it is to be together on this rainy night. Hine ma tohu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. So because we are cantorless, although that was beautiful, actually, you guys were great, and without Talia, but also for another reason. This is the first Friday of the month, and I usually do this as a family-friendly, kids-oriented service, but we have so many kids who are coming to our Hanukkah bash on Sunday at 4 o'clock, and so many who we hope are coming next week for our Night of 1,000 Menorahs, that I'm not surprised that we've had very fewer young kids here tonight. So I'm, as we are going along, changing the style back to our more regular style, and that's easier, at least for me to sing, or since that's an oxymoron, that's easier for you to help out in the singing. So we turn to page 1, and also, instead of a story, we're going to get a taste of Torah study tonight in one of what I think is one of the single most interesting portions of the entire Torah. But I don't want to sound like Jay Leno. Have we got a great show for you tonight? Every week we say, have we got a great Torah portion for you tonight? So, so Shabbat Shalom, page 130 and 131. Lechu Adonai and Shiru Ladonai. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Sing unto God a new song. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena Ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena Ladonai. Naria, naria, vesuri shenu, nekad mafanav betodah. Naria, Naria, Lesori Shenu, Bizmirot Naria Lo, Lechu Nerandena, Lechu Nerandena, Lechu Nerandena, Ladonai, Lechu Nerandena, Lechu Nerandena, Lechu Nerandena, 131. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Miyom Liyom, Yeshuato, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Miyom Liyom, Yeshuato, Lechu Nerandena, Lechu Nerandena, Lechu Nerandena, Ladonai, Lechu Nerandena, Lechu Nerandena, Lechu Nerandena, Ladonai. Jump all the way to Lechadodi, page 138 and 139, sections 1, 2, 5, and 9. Lecha Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Lecha Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Shamor v'zachor v'tibor echad, Yishmiyadu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'liti la 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 lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Lecha Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Likrat Shabbat B'chut v'nilcha, Ki Mekor Harachat, Merosh Migetem Nesucha, Sof Ma'aseh B'machshavat Chila la 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 Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Lecha Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Top of 139. Hitorari, Hitorari, Kiva Ored Kumi Uri, Uri Uri Shir Taveri, Kevod Adonai Alai, Ikni la 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 Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Lecha Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Boi v'shalom ateret lala, Gam b'simcha u'b'torah, Toch emnei am sikulah, Boi chala la 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 Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Lecha Lechadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. The bottom of page 143, the last paragraph from last week's Torah portion, and then we'll go back to 142 for Shalom Aleichem. Together, waking from his sleep, Jacob said, "Truly Adonai is in this place, and I did not know it." He was awestruck and said, "How awe-inspiring is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." remember last week's portion. We read this last week. It's laid out on this page, on page 143. Jacob is scared. He's leaving home. He's afraid. He's alone. That's a key word there. He's alone, and he uses a rock for a pillow. And as we said, both Friday night and Saturday morning last week, weird things happen when you use rocks for pillows. This is an etiology, which is a fancy word for an explanation of the name of a shrine called Beth El, House of God. Similarly, in this week's portion, we get an etiology of a shrine. It is also on the border. It is also something weird. So weird things happen when you leave and when you come back to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel. But we will look at that more later on. Page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Page 144, we rise and we face east. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד יפרח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחיי חונוכם וחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה ובזמן קריב, בימרו יהי שמי רבה מבורך, ועולם לא מעליה יתפרח וישתבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתהלל יתהלל, שמי קדושה לעילם ינכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה לנחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה, ויאמרו אמן. 146, ברכו את אדוני המבורך. המבורך לעולם ועד. 149 on the top, as we face each other but remain standing. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, ha-ma'ariv ha'ravim. The bottom of 151, wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Elohim, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Echad, b'chol lavcha ub'chol nafshecha ub'chol me'otecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzadecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשלתך ובקומך וקשרת להיות ידיך והיו לטוטפות בעיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Page 159, but before we do, I have something to say. I have shared this with some of you, but I think perhaps not on an Erev Shabbat, not on a Friday night. There is a mistake that I think fundamentalists make, that atheists also make, and remember, some of my best Jews are atheists, right? Some of my best atheists are Jews, right? Steinberg goes to synagogue to talk to God. Bergstein goes to synagogue to talk to Steinberg. In Judaism, both of those are religious reasons for going, right? So there's no set requirement about what your beliefs in God are. But I do think that strident atheists and fundamentalists make the same mistake. The mistake they make is that they think that the prayers are prose, that they are statements that are descriptions of the world the way it is. Clearly, the language is not a description of the world the way it is. And so, in looking at a conflict between the tradition on the page in the prayers and the world around us, an atheist will say, well, the prayers and the tradition must be wrong. And a fundamentalist will say, well, there's a distinction, a contrast between the world and the tradition and the prayers. The world must be wrong. It's the same mistake. It's taking it too literally. As fighting begins again in Israel and Gaza, as rockets rain down once again on the, or try to, on the skies of Tel Aviv, I think about these words on page 159, and I am reminded that prayers are prescriptive, that they're not prose but poetry, that this is not the way the world is, but it is aspirational for the way we hope, want, and yearn for the world to be. Together, sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Mi chamocha, 158. Mi chamocha va'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, Noah tehilot osei felek, Noah tehilot osei felek, malchut yutecha, ra'u vanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze'lianu ve'amru, Adonai Adonai le'olam va'ed. Ve'amar kivada Adonai et Yaakov, u'ga'alo mi'ad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. The bottom of 161. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, hapo'es sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. The Amidah, the Tefillah, page 164, please rise. Adonai sifata tiftach ufi yadi tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu Limotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Mashiv haruach u'mo'id hagashtem mehalkel chayim bechesed mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim tzolech noflim v'nochel olim u'matir asurim u'mekayeh emunato l'shenei afar michamocha b'gevurot u'midom elav melech nemid u'mekayeh u'matzmiach Yeshua v'ne'emar atah l'chayot hakol baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh Kadoshim b'kol yom ya'budu v'chasela baruch atah Adonai Ha'el. In personal prayer. As we face each other, you may be seated. 180. Ohoseh shalom b'bracha, u'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov v'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah v'Yivarech v'Yirapeh et hacholim ha'eleh. O God, who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, send your blessing and healing, your comfort and hope to all those of our loved ones, of our family, of our friends, of our neighbors who are ill and in need of attention. And we mention at this time Mona Ellis, Cynthia Baylor, Cantor Judith Ovadia, Leanne Campbell, Rona Robb, David Wetzel, Sonia Kaplan. Any other names in the prayer for healing?
Sam Goldwasser, Chris Downing, and Kathleen Smith-Bay.
Cindy Barron's, Dayton James. Ruth Blood. Beverly and Edmund Weiss. Cookie Flan.
John Russell, Susan, Rachel.
Baruch atah Adonai Rafeh Cholim. We praise you, O God, who helps us heal, who brings us comfort. So, those of you who are coming tomorrow morning will get a little foretaste of Torah study here. We are doing a deeper dive than we usually do. I think there's only enough for, if couples share, we should have enough, or families, if you'll pass these around. Remember, last week Jacob leaves the land. This is the week for Parshat Vayishlach that he comes back. Last week was Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. This is a very famous wrestling match. But there are questions about the wrestling match. Let us first, and you need to read loudly and clearly, if we get a volunteer to read this, because, actually, you know what? Because of the way the microphone is positioned and because we may have some people on Facebook, I'm actually going to read this, but then I will have each of you loudly share the questions on the back side. So is everyone looking at one? And for those online, I'm going to read as clearly as I can. This is not the very beginning of the portion. It's a few verses in. Genesis chapter 32, verses 23 and following. If you are watching online and you have a Bible right by your computer, go grab, I'm sure you all do, go grab it. Genesis chapter 32, verse 23. That same night he, meaning Jacob, arose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children, there's some problems with that number, but we'll leave that alone. He crossed the ford of the, what's that next word? I'm going to ask you about that word later on. Okay, take a look at that word. Rub your eyes, look at it again, let the letters float around in different directions. Look at that word carefully. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had prevailed not against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of the hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with beings divine and human and have prevailed." Side note, that is supposed to be an explanation of the name Israel, but it's an inaccurate explanation. The name Israel actually means something much more interesting, and the sar root for Yisrael, of wrestling with God, is a very rare grammatical form. Another time I'll tell you what it makes much more sense for the name Yisrael to mean. So this is also an etiology, an explanation of the name, but it's wrong. It's not accurate. It's not the explanation of the name Israel. Jacob asked, "Pray, tell me your name." But he said, the other being, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning I have seen a divine being. Panim el panim. The word for face is panim. Peniel, face of God. The sun, yet my life has been preserved. The sun rose upon him and he passed Penuel. So that's the actual known name of the place. Peniel is a little bit off. Limping on his hip. That is why the children of Israel don't have filet mignon to this day. Right? For he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh on the inner sinew. Okay. Now, when we read this tomorrow morning, which we will, I will give everyone a chance to ask questions, but I do not want to keep you here all night. You're welcome. And so I'm going to ask you to turn the page over. And there are a series of questions here that I want to get at. But does anybody have something you're burning to say? Any quick reaction to this story? How many of you, is this your first time looking at it closely? Okay, so that's, some of you. Okay, what is the story about? I'm going to ask you. Don't all shout at once. Well, that's what we're going to look at.
Jacob struggling?
Yeah, Jacob is clearly struggling, but with what, with whom, and how you answer that question is the key to how you view this entire story.
Jacob struggles with himself.
Well, Shelley, you have said where I ultimately believe this story is about, but this story functions on many different levels at once. Tomorrow morning I'll tell you what all those 4 levels are, but it's more than 4 interpretations. but there's 4 different styles of interpreting the story. And I think that you are hitting the midrashic interpretation. I agree with that interpretation. And I think that the first question I'm asking on this next page is a hint for Shelley's interpretation here. So, note the name of the river. What was the name of the river? Yabok. Why might the river's name matter?
Jacob, because that sounds like it's part of Jacob.
You know, my teacher, whenever we would, at Hebrew Union College, whenever anybody would flip a letter, would go, "No, yesh lecha dyslexia?" And we'd say, "What, do you have dyslexia when you flip letters?" And she, first of all, that's not technically dyslexia. We know that that's right. But she'd say, we'd say, "Hannah, what kind of thing?" And she'd say, "Bertzinut, seriously, lifamim lo megalim et ze ad lomdim safa acheret." Sometimes you don't discover this until you study another language, right? So the flipping of letters, which I do in my head without intending to, kark the par and lo the mon, but the flipping of letters, paranomasia, wordplay, is a standard interpretive technique, and so Yabok, symbolizing Yaakov, is a very easy. So if the river is his own name, if he's crossing himself, as it were, this is a significant, crossroads in his life. Then the interpretation of him wrestling with himself is quite powerful. I do think that's my read of the story. But let's go to number 2. Why was Jacob positioned where he was? Why was he alone? Why is he alone when he leaves Eretz Yisrael?
He's fleeing.
He's fleeing and he is alone. But now he's got cattle, he's got herds, he's got multiple wives, he's got at least 11 children. Maybe Dinah, the 12th that he isn't mentioning here, right? She comes up in this portion too, later. Why is he alone?
Because he's never alone.
Well, from a theological point of view, it could be to prove you're never alone. God is every move you make, every step you take, right? Who's that, the police? Right? I'll be watching you, right? So maybe it's a theological statement that he's never alone. But I think, the term deus ex machina in plays is sort of when you do something clunky because it just has to be that way, right? I think that the story requires him to be alone. He's alone when he leaves. He has to be alone when he comes back. And so in order to get him to be alone, you've got to get this whole thing where he causes everyone to cross over the river. And then Rashi says, and then he goes back because he had forgotten some jars. And then the sun sets and he's, right? What? He forgot his cell phone, right? So he went back to get his cell phone. It's right. So there are different interpretations, which we'll go into tomorrow morning in a little bit more detail. But I think number 3, and there's a typo in number 3, what if he is alone because he simply had to be alone? The narrative called for it. Alone he left home, and alone he returns. Question number 4. Who wrestles with Jacob in the night? How we identify the foe reveals what we think this story is about. Rashi says, our rabbis of blessed memory explained, he was Esau's guardian angel. So what does the story look like if Jacob is wrestling with the guardian angel of Esau? What does that mean?
He's wrestling with what he did to Esau, and he's trying to figure out what he can do because he left because he was afraid. So
you're still internalizing it, so hold off for a second. We're going to get there. Again, remember, Shelley, I agree with you. That happens to be my read of this story. But let's stick with Rashi for a minute. If it's the guardian of Esau, then this is a precursor at some kind of heavenly level of the battle that he anticipates is going to come the next day. Right? Remember what has been said to him earlier in the portion, which we didn't read. Your brother Esau is coming to greet you, and he has 400 armed men with him. To which Jacob says, Yeah, that's a more polite translation than the words that came into my head, right? Right? So he's obviously like worried about this. But a guardian angel could mean something other than sort of a personal one. And we're going to explore tomorrow the interpretation of a really brilliant 19th century, 1800s European thinker named Nachman Krochmal. And we'll look at him a little bit more tomorrow as he talks about the spirit of a nation. And here, of course, if it's the spirit of a nation, we can look at this story in yet another way. This is an allegorical level of interpretation. Because what does his name get changed to? Israel. And who is Israel? Us, the people. Am Yisrael. Eventually a country, but the Jewish people, right? B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, the Israelites. And if he, therefore, represents, I'm thinking of the Beatles, all the Jewish people, right? If he represents all the Jewish people, then who is he struggling with?
The non-Jewish people.
So Esau then comes to represent the Goyim, right? And who are the particular Goyim? At one point it could be Rome. At another point it could be Christianity. It's probably not Islam because we already have a stand-in for Islam. Who's that? Ishmael, right? But it's probably, and so, if so, this could be an allegorical story of the struggle between the Jewish people and the non-Jews in the world. And sort of the eternal struggle. But then, finally, we can come back to, that odd thing at the end where he says, tell me your name. And the thing he's struggling with can't respond. Why? What's the traditional explanation for why the thing can't respond?
Because it's divine.
Because it's divine, and angels just don't have permanent names. They have names defined by their missions. But now let's come back to Shelley. Let's think about this from another point of view. Jacob is by the river Yabok, which is flipping his name. The story says he's alone. Why don't we take that seriously? It says he's alone, right? And then he's wrestling with something which can't give its name. Why can't it give its name? Because it's him, right? Can you get hurt wrestling with yourself?
The film Fight Club.
Emotionally, you can.
The film Fight Club, emotionally,
You can.
morally, in all kinds of ways. So I come to a conclusion of this Torah study, and we'll go into this passage again in more detail tomorrow, so please join us. But I come to a conclusion by asking you, what are you wrestling with? What are you struggling with so much that you toss and turn at night? That it even might leave you limping? How do you deal with it? And how do you go on in a way which is whole? Barbara, I expect a full answer to that in triplicate by tomorrow morning. But I leave you with that question. What do you struggle with? What are you wrestling with? And how do you come out whole? Shabbat Shalom. Page 586 towards the bottom. Please rise. Yep, that's it. Okay. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tetu l'yisrael reshit, shalom asanu goyim ha'ason, v'lo samanu tishbot adama, shalom sam kaleinu ka'em, v'go aleinu tuso, ushchina tuso, bekov he me'omi. Hu Eloheinu Eino, Emet Malkeinu Efesulato, Kakatu Betorato, V'yadata hayom v'ashevota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, Hashamayim mima'al, ve'al haaretz mitachat einod. Page 591. Ve'ne'emar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
You see, we only have our regulars here this evening. We have no guests with us. So I can say to the regulars, I'm going to ask for your forgiveness because I thought you forgot me.
Could I forget you? You're unforgettable.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so you all know to join us after services for Kiddush in the lobby. On Sunday, we are having our Hanukkah celebration, and there's going to be all kinds of things going on. There's a latke bar, and there's, let me see, a sangria bar, and mac and cheese, and entertainment, and a DJ, and I think they're showing the Eagles game. So there's something for everybody. If you have not signed up, the price at the door is $30 for an adult and $23 for children 2 to 11. And if you would like to come, please do. It's going to be fabulous. I think we have well over about 120 coming. 130? Okay. All right. So it'll be lots of fun.
Is it going to be donuts?
Are there donuts?
Jelly donuts.
Jelly donuts. Yep. Everything you could possibly want will be there. So, yep.
If you started making them.
No, he doesn't have to bake, but that's a good idea. We are collecting new unwrapped toys and gift cards, say for Target or Walmart, for the Division of Child Protection and Permanency. And if you have any of these, please bring them to the Temple office. The next book club will be Wednesday, December the 6th at 1 p.m. in the Cohen Library. The selection is Don't Forget to Write by Sarah Goodman Confino. And everybody is welcome. They always say, even if you didn't read the book, you're still welcome to come to the group. Great Jewish Books with Rabbi Feshbach continues on Thursday, December the 7th at 12 noon. And also for that, everyone is welcome. And next Friday, December the 8th, join us for a night of 1,000 menorahs. Celebrate with services at 5:30 and menorah lighting and latkes. And this is $36 per family or $10 per person. Please RSVP if you'd like to come so that we have enough latkes and food. With that, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. The $36 is for the dinner. The service is free.
You're right on that.
Just,
And the 36 is for a family.
Don't have to pay to pray.
No pay.
Well, you just have to help us cover the expense of the food. War comes once again. On our Facebook pages will soon appear the names of the fallen we do know. There are too many whose names we do not know. We take a moment to take all of those whose lives are lost in violent conflict into our hearts. There are stars whose radiance is visible on this earth, though they have long since ceased to exist. There are people whose light and whose warmth continue to shine for us, though they are no longer among us. These stars which shine in the dark of the night, they light the way for humankind. We remember at this time those of our congregation's beloved whose yahrzeit occurs on this Shabbat: Mildred Abis, Julian Eskowitz, Leah Ambaum, Marvin Ashner, Myra Balinson, Morris Berg, Roberta Berman, Louis Bernhardt, Rebecca Blitz, Rebecca Coblins, Louis Kofsky, Charles Cohen, Stephen Fisher, Oriel Flax, Louis Friedberg, Evelyn Friedberg, Estelle Klein, Phyllis Kunin, Charles Laubheim, Francis Levy, Martha Palek, Lois Rothenberg, James Rubino, Minnie Spitzer, Marion Stern, Herman Turan, Paul Waddle, Arthur Walker, Victor Mason, Gertrude Weiss, Abraham Zwicker. Before we continue with recent deaths, is there anyone else here to say Kaddish, or someone whose name I did not mention? Anyone whose yahrzeit occurs on this Shabbat? With sorrowing hearts, we add the names of Harry Friedman, Henry Kissinger, and we note the passing earlier today of Sandra Day O'Connor. The memories of all of our loved ones are with us. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we turn now to Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598, and we rise as a congregation for the Kaddish prayer itself. Yitzgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayei chon u'vyom echon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'hagalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah m'vorach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, u'ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yosvei tevel v'imru. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort all the bereaved among us and wherever they may be, all those who are suffering the pain of loss everywhere, and together, let us say.
Amen.
We remain standing and we turn to page 625. Julie reminded me on the way in of the infinite flexibility of Adon Olam. Adon Olam is perfectly syncopated. That means that every other syllable is accented. That means it can go to any tune. The Marseillaise, Adon Olam Asher Malach. The Brady Bunch, Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra. Right? Old Man River, Adon Olam. It can go to anything. So since Hanukkah is coming this Thursday night, I'm not sure that I can pull this off, but name a Hanukkah song that you remember, not one of the newfangled ones. That's a new fact. That's new, right?
Rock of Ages.
There you go.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'ed Nasa V'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shelo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimlok Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hoveh Ve'hu Yeh B'tifara hoden vehu yeh. We'll quit while we're ahead. Nicely done. Shabbat shalom. Please join us for candles, kiddush, and motzi.
Oh, are you? Oh, okay, yeah. All of my cars went down already. I've been down there about 4 or 5 times.
She was at the movie. Oh, good, all right. Well, then they have it next Friday, so. Oh, good.